Welcome back to another Broken Podcast. I'm Nick Taylor, and I'm going to be real with you. I've been running on fumes before the week ever even began. You ever get so mentally overloaded with what's coming that you're already exhausted before anything actually happened? That's where I'm at. But this is important to me. And we just launched brand new designs on the merch store to celebrate the start of season 2. If you haven't checked it out yet, please do. That kind of support helps me keep building this platform and message. You can find everything at etsy.com/shop/another broken podcast. As I was uploading those new designs and juggling everything I still have ahead of me this week, including providing help to a close friend, I found myself reflecting on this internal drive I have to always step in and help. That instinct goes beyond kindness. It's not just being nice, and it's not just people pleasing, even though that's the label most people would slap on it. See, the phrase people pleaser gets thrown around a lot. It's kind of becoming a blanket term for anyone who struggles to say no or who puts others before themselves. But beneath that surface, there are deep psychological layers. Sometimes it's not about wanting to be liked, it's about needing to be needed. Sometimes it comes from trauma, survival conditioning, or an identity that was shaped entirely around caregiving. And if you've been through enough pain, helping others can start to feel like the only way you're allowed to feel good. And like anything that's rooted in trauma, healing begins when you name it. So that's what I want to do today. Walk you through the real weight behind the compulsion to help and explore why some of us live for others but forget how to live for ourselves. Growing up, we were surrounded by stories of heroes. Cartoons, movies, video games, all built around the idea that the hero steps in at the last second, saves the helpless, and earns the love, respect, and validation of everyone around them. For many of us, especially those who grew up in chaotic homes or unstable environments, that message hits deeper. Being the hero isn't just about justice, it's about proving your worth. It becomes a way to rewrite your own story, to save others in the ways no one saved you. That childhood desire to be a hero often starts innocent, but for some, it grows into something more rigid, more compulsive. That innocent desire, if shaped by trauma, neglect, or emotional abandonment, can develop into what psychologists call a savior complex, or in some circles, white knight syndrome. It's not officially listed in the DSM 5 as a diagnosis, but it's widely recognized in psychotherapy as a behavioral pattern where a person feels driven, even morally obligated, to save others from distress. The danger is that this need to help others becomes tied to self-worth. You only feel good when you're fixing someone. You only feel valuable when you're sacrificing. And slowly you stop helping people because it's right and start doing it because it's the only way you know how to feel okay. When the cycle goes unchecked, it doesn't just become unhealthy, it becomes destructive. You start absorbing other people's problems like they're your own. You become hyper vigilant, constantly scanning for someone to rescue, someone to save. Meanwhile, your own needs, goals, boundaries, they dissolve in the background. You're not living your life, you're managing everyone else's. This is a highway to burnout, and trust me, you will crash. Not because you're weak, but because your nervous system wasn't designed to be everyone's life raft. Looking back on my own life, especially the darkest chapters, this was exactly where I landed. I didn't feel safe unless I was helping. I didn't feel like I mattered unless I was rescuing someone. My own health, my own safety, my own peace, none of it mattered if someone else needed me. And for a while, I believed that was noble. I told myself I was strong, that I was just built different. But truthfully, I was avoiding myself. I was avoiding the emptiness, and even though putting others first can be admirable, it crosses the line into dangerous when it becomes the only thing that you live for. That's not nobility, it's self erasure. Let's start with the science because it's not just emotional, it's chemical. When you act on the urge to help someone, your brain releases a wave of feel good neurotransmitters: dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin. It's called a helper's high. And for most, it's a beautiful thing. You do something good, and your body rewards you with a shot of emotional satisfaction. But here's the catch: if you've lived through trauma or if your self worth is damaged, your brain starts craving that feeling like a fix. Helping someone becomes less about the other person and more about quieting your own internal pain. That's where compulsive helping is born. Compulsive helping isn't just about being generous or kind hearted, it's a behavioral loop. You see someone struggling and immediately feel the urge to step in, even if they don't ask. You might override their autonomy, take over their responsibility, or insert yourself into situations that aren't yours to manage. The scary part is, this pattern feels noble while it's happening, but often you're actually disempowering the very person you're trying to support. By rescuing them from their natural consequences, you rob them of the ability to grow, learn, and gain confidence. You absorb their weight not out of malice, but out of compulsion. Eventually, helping stops being about compassion and starts being about control. Not in an overt power hungry way, but in the sense that you feel internally unstable unless you're fixing someone. Your self worth becomes chemically and emotionally tethered to usefulness. And like any addiction, the more you feed it, the more it demands. That's when your efforts start hurting people. You cross boundaries, you ignore consent, you hijack situations that aren't yours to begin with. You might think you're helping, but if someone declines your assistance and you push ahead anyway, you've stopped being a support system and started being the problem. And the worst part, you still believe you're doing good. Let's talk about the martyr complex, one of the most misunderstood and at times toxic layers of the people pleasing spectrum. Someone with this complex often sacrifices their own needs, time, and emotional bandwidth to serve others, but not from a place of peace or empowerment. Instead, it comes with strings attached and the expectation of recognition, gratitude, or validation. The longer this goes on, the more that quiet internal resentment grows. You say yes when you want to say no. You give more than you can afford to give. But deep down, you expect a payoff: loyalty, praise, special treatment. When that doesn't come, bitterness follows. The dangerous part of martyr syndrome is that it disguises itself as generosity, but underneath, it's often a hidden transaction. I suffered for you, so you owe me. The person may not even realize they're keeping a mental scorecard, but over time, that scoreboard becomes their emotional leverage. They might remind others how much they've given up, they might guilt trip or manipulate, and they often feel slighted or betrayed when others don't respond with praise or reciprocity. It's not that the person is evil, it's that their self worth has become tied to suffering. And when pain becomes your currency for love, that's a recipe for emotional toxicity. Of all the white knight behaviors, the martyr complex is the one most likely to border on narcissism. While traditional people pleasing is often rooted in fear or insecurity, martyrdom simply flips into entitlement. The person isn't just giving, they believe they deserve superior treatment because of their suffering. They may weaponize their sacrifice to control others. In extreme cases, this becomes emotional blackmail. If you ever felt trapped by someone who constantly reminds you of their good deeds, not to connect, but to manipulate, you've seen this play out firsthand. That's not love, that's control dressed up as kindness. The word enabling gets tossed around a lot, usually as a weapon. It's a term that often gets hurled at people who are already hurting, already exhausted, already trying their best. And while, yes, enabling behavior is real and does have consequences, it's way more nuanced than the blame game makes it seem. For many people pleasers and trauma survivors, enabling doesn't start with permission. It starts with survival. Sometimes you agree with someone not because you actually agree, but because you're trying to avoid conflict. Sometimes you don't speak up about someone's toxic behavior because deep down you're afraid of retaliation. That's not enabling out of weakness, that's enabling as a trauma response. Enabling happens when you unintentionally support or protect another person's dysfunction. That can look like covering up for them, minimalizing their behavior, making excuses for their actions, or stepping in to fix their consequences. And the dangerous part is, it often comes from love. You don't want to see someone you care about suffer, so you soften the blow. But in doing so, you block the natural feedback loop that would normally help them grow and take accountability. You carry their burden for them, and in turn, they never learn how to carry it themselves. Eventually, you become part of a pattern that keeps them stuck. And like I said, most people don't set out to enable. You don't wake up one day and decide, I'm going to keep this person in a toxic cycle. It usually happens slowly over time, especially in abusive or codependent relationships. If you've been conditioned to walk on eggshells, or if you've been groomed to praise someone who harms you, enabling can become second nature. But it can also happen in less extreme cases, like when you stay silent to avoid tension, or you do things that you don't agree with just to keep the peace. Different routes, same outcome. You shrink yourself so someone else doesn't have to face the full weight of their own actions. And here's something I feel strongly about. If someone is going to tell you that you're enabling, make sure it's a licensed medical health professional, not your partner, not your parent, not your friend online. Why? Because a real therapist wouldn't just slap a label on you. They'll help you understand why those patterns formed and how to heal them without shame. When non professionals throw that word around, it's almost always used as a tool to hurt or silence you. We don't need any more shame. What we need is space to grow without being accused, blamed, or guilt tripped for coping the only way we knew how. Now that we've peeled back the layers, it becomes clear. What most people casually call people pleasing is often something much deeper. The label barely scratches the surface. The behaviors we're talking about, chronic self sacrifice, rescuing, compulsive helping, enabling, these aren't just quirks or bad habits. They're symptoms. They're often a result of something formative, something painful, trauma, abandonment, shame, attachment wounds, unmet childhood needs, addictions, survival instincts. And while these patterns feel like choices, they're often programmed responses. You didn't choose to be this way, you adapted. I've lived in every one of these roles at different points in my life: white knight, martyr, enabler, savior. No matter what form it took, it always led to the same place: exhaustion, emptiness, and this aching sense of not enough. I mean, I once saved someone from a literal burning building and still felt like I hadn't done enough. That's how deep this goes. It wasn't about the act. It was about the belief underneath that my worth hinged on how much I could give, how much I could suffer, how much I could sacrifice. And every time I helped someone else, I lost another piece of myself. Whether it's white knight syndrome, a martyr complex, or compulsive helping, the common thread is this: we erase ourselves. We disappear in the name of love. We forget that we're human. And over time, that self neglect reshapes the way we think. You start to believe you're only valuable when you're useful, that love is earned through service, that rest is weakness, that asking for help is selfish. But those beliefs are lies. They are killing people softly from the inside out. I spent decades living in that invisible servitude. And I want you to know this: you don't have to wait until you hit rock bottom to break the cycle. You don't need to completely burn out. You don't need to be pushed past your emotional limits to finally give yourself permission to matter. Healing takes work, daily work, but it's possible. You can learn to give from a place of wholeness instead of depletion. You can help people without abandoning yourself. You can exist without proving your worth every second. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to receive. And you deserve to live, not just exist as a support system for everyone else's story. I've talked a lot about the white knight mindset from a psychological perspective, but this is personal. I didn't sit down one day and decide I'm going to become a savior. It happened slowly, almost invisibly, like armor being forged one trauma at a time. A childhood moment here, a betrayal there. Eventually, I wasn't just helping people, I was rescuing them, shielding them, throwing myself in front of their pain like it was my own. What started as compassion morphed into compulsion. It wasn't a choice, it was survival. I saw pain and rushed towards it, not away. Because maybe if I saved enough people, I'd finally feel saved too. There were times I genuinely didn't care what happened to me. Not out of courage, but out of apathy toward my own life. I've stepped into dangerous situations without a second thought, diffused assaults, pulled someone from a burning house, put my body, my mind, and my finances on the line for people I barely knew. Not because I wanted recognition, but because it didn't occur to me that I was worth protecting. The truth is, when you've been through enough pain, self-sacrifice becomes the easiest escape. I wasn't chasing purpose, I was avoiding emptiness. This pattern didn't just show up one day in adulthood. It was conditioned into me through trauma that spanned spiritual, sexual, physical, and emotional boundaries. And by the time I hit adulthood, I wasn't helping people. I was offering myself up like a human sacrifice. I didn't say no because I didn't believe that I could. Somewhere along the way, I accepted this toxic belief that if I suffered enough, maybe someone would finally love me. That maybe pain was the price for being seen. But when your entire identity revolves around giving, people will take, and take, and take. What I didn't understand back then is that even the purest intentions need boundaries. Without them, help becomes harm, both to the person you're helping and to yourself. I lost that internal compass. Helping wasn't a choice anymore, it was an obligation. And because of that, I stopped feeling good about it. It didn't bring peace, just pressure. Even when I was running on empty, physically, emotionally, spiritually, I'd still give more. If someone needed something, I didn't even stop to ask myself if I could afford to give it. I just gave, every time. And I was dying on the inside because of it. By the time I hit my 20s, I had fully resigned myself to the idea that my sole purpose on this earth was to serve others. I surrounded myself with people who needed me, not people who loved me, respected me, or poured into me in return, just people who took. And I allowed it because deep down, I still believed that one day all the pain would be worth it. One day they'd see me. One day it would all be reciprocated. But that day never came, because no matter how shiny the armor, it doesn't guarantee someone will love the knight inside. Here's the truth I wish someone had told me sooner. Being the good guy doesn't protect you. It makes you a target. When your identity is built on rescuing, fixing, and overgiving, you become a magnet for takers, manipulators, narcissists, abusers, people who see your bleeding heart and think, perfect, they'll never leave. They'll never push back. They'll never put themselves first. And for a while, they're right. Because when your entire sense of worth is tied to being needed, you'll tolerate almost anything, even if it's killing you slowly. That's what becomes of a worn out knight, used, discarded, and wondering why it never felt like enough. But there's a way out. It starts with something that feels almost unnatural at first: boundaries. Not just with others, but with yourself. You have to learn how to say no even when your whole body screams yes. You have to sit in the discomfort of not fixing, not saving, not proving. You have to start treating yourself with the same urgency and compassion you've always given to everyone else. That's not selfish. That's necessary. Because you can't keep bleeding for others and calling it love. Real help, the kind that heals instead of hurts, only happens when it comes from a place of balance, not burnout. Here's the part no one warns you about. Healing will cost you relationships. When you stop overextending yourself, some people will disappear. The ones who loved your compliance, your constant availability, your silent suffering, they'll be the first to leave. And it'll hurt, because even if those relationships were toxic, they were still familiar. They still gave you a role to play. But here's the truth. If someone only loved you for what you gave them, they didn't really love you. Let them go. You don't owe anyone your destruction. That phase of healing where it feels like everyone's gone and you're sitting alone in the rubble, it's real. It's brutal, but it's also temporary. Because once the noise clears, you get to build a life where your value isn't tied to how much you bleed. A life with real boundaries, real connections, real rest. It's lonely at first, but then it gets peaceful. Then it gets free. That's what becomes of a worn out knight who lays down his sword. He becomes human again, and he finally starts to live. If anything I said today hit a nerve, if you saw yourself in these patterns, these stories, this armor you didn't even realize you were wearing, I need you to hear this. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are not selfish for wanting more than just survival. And you're not beyond healing, even if it feels like you've given away every last piece of yourself. Whether what you're carrying comes from trauma, conditioning, abandonment, or just years of putting yourself last, there's a path forward. But you won't find it by rescuing one more person. You won't find it by sacrificing your last ounce of energy, hoping someone finally sees your worth. You'll find it when you stop looking outward and start coming home to you. Reach out to a professional. Find someone who can help you unravel the wiring without judgment, without shame. Therapy isn't a sign that you're failing. It's a signal that you're finally ready to stop bleeding for anyone else and start healing for yourself. Because here's the truth. Living your life entirely for other people, constantly abandoning yourself to be useful, helpful, needed, that's not living. That's a slow death dressed up as purpose. You were never meant to be a tool. You were meant to be a person, a whole, worthy, messy, healing person with your own needs, your own dreams, and your own peace. So take the armor off and start learning how to live. Thanks for joining us today for this episode of Another Broken Podcast. As always, I'd love to hear from you guys. So shoot us an email at brokenmedia1984@gmail.com. Add us on TikTok at Another Broken Dad, or simply just comment on this episode. Whatever way, I'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to check out the podcast website at brokenmedia1984.podbean.com. And don't forget to check out the merch store with new designs that just released for season 2 by either following the link from the podcast website or looking up Another Broken Podcast on Etsy.com. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend and look forward to talking to you again next week. Have a good one, guys.